Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Digital Transformation Talk Series hosted by Zulu Information Systems. For more than 10 years, the company has been helping business owners and leadership teams grow their business and make more money by leveraging digital solutions. My name is FT Liu and I'm the moderator for this session. First, let me highlight the format for today's session. Immediately after this opening, our speaker will be sharing for 45 minutes before we have the interactive Q&A session for at least 30 minutes. Participants, you are welcome to post your questions anytime in the chat and we will address them during the Q&A session. Please note that all the mics will be muted throughout unless you are invited to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, digital transformation is the adoption of digital technology to change the way we do business. It is such a hot topic today simply because 7 of the world's 10 most valuable companies today rely on digital platforms. They are Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, Microsoft, and from China, Alibaba and Tencent. As a result, business schools, consulting companies, and IT companies are all coming forward with services and solutions to help businesses start their digital transformation journey. Today, we are fortunate to have someone who's already been there and done that. Today, we have with us a practitioner who will be sharing with us 3 things. First, what is the digital model adopted by his organization? Second, why did they embark on the digital journey? And finally, how did they make it happen? Our speaker, Mr. Isaac Chow, is currently the Chief Operating Officer of ASTAR's Experimental Drug Developmental Center. This is Singapore's national platform for drug discovery and development. Prior to that, for 5 years, he was the director of ASTAR's Research Support Center, which offers scientific services as well as an online consumable store that carries more than 5,000 items from various vendors. Isaac has a computer science degree from NUS. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Isaac Chow.
Thank you, FT. It's a pleasure to be here, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Friday morning. Firstly, I'd like to thank Zulu for this session that you can bring us together for an exchange. I like to call it exchange because I'm looking forward to the Q&A session at the end of this. And I invite you to put in your comments, some questions that you have in mind along the way. And we have Dorothy behind the scene helping us. She's collating the questions, and then we can have a moment to share them with you later. All right. So I like the nail that's mentioned in this Japanese proverb. The transaction that we are talking about today is the nail. If you can nail it, then your war can be won. So getting into today's content, I will take you through a journey of what we have done, what is our digital model, why did we even start this journey, and how did it happen. So a bit about myself before going into the proper. I am a practitioner in supply chain. Along the way, moved into commercial operations, and I was with Philips Healthcare for the past 17 years before joining ASTAR. And some of this information that I'm sharing does draw back on my background with Philips. And since 5 years ago, I joined ASTAR and did a transformation, which you will see as we walk through the slides later. And what is Research Support Center? That's my previous role. And today I come in a personal capacity. Forget about the organization that I came from, because I like you to think about how this can apply to you, because it doesn't have to be the same organization. It can be in a different business setting. It can be a different user group as well. So it is not the where I came from or where I am now that's important, but more how it applies to you. So Research Support Center, we call it the RSC, is a one-stop access. And what did we do, or what is RSC doing now? Here is the mission. Notice that there are two groups on the slide here. One is the users. The users are the researchers, the scientists that will need consumables, they need expertise, they need equipment. And this is how they will get access to those through the RSC. And on the other side is the scientific platforms. So the solution providers, the labs with the equipment, they have the capabilities that then is given access to by the users. So RSC takes care of this ecosystem by connecting everyone and then achieving the scientific outcome that we want in ASTAR. Right? So you may ask, oh, then what did we do? I took over the unit, and in 2017, we started asking, what do we need to get ourselves better? And to me, my digital model is very simple. I used to tell my staff, it's the data. Let's get the visibility and go for the competitive edge. Why? Because we should always be one step, two steps ahead of competition. And it boils down to no digitization, no data, no impact. You may ask, what are some of the impact? The impact that I got is different from some of you out there. For me, the impact is revenue. The impact is customer satisfaction. So with the data, we are able to tell, oh, what have we done, and does it relate to the feedback we get from customers? And the impact can be cost as well, which must be relevant for many of you out there. Yeah? So it is, for example, productivity, which you will see later in the slides what we have achieved in RSC. Okay, so this is a moment of reflection. I did that in 2017. I believe some of you may be thinking, where are you in your journey? Many steps, as you can see. And do you have to be right at the top, close to the top? The answer is no. Where I started off was really right at the bottom of that scale. Right there at the first step, digitize. And then move on to automate. And you'll be surprised, by just doing that first two steps, you would have achieved quite some impact, some benefits for the organization, not just financially tangible results, but also the impact on the people, the staff, the partners, the customers. So think through and where you are, and it doesn't matter how high you are on the ladder. You know, it is about where you choose to be your starting point and decide to start, right? And today, just remember the 3 C's. So why do we do this? To compete, to be compliant, and that also allows you to construct. So first of all, how to compete? Competing means that there are people involved, there are customers, and right here you see the users that I had to deal with, which I'll show you in the next slide, are sophisticated. Think of them as world-class scientists. Think of them as people who were working in Cambridge, in Harvard, across the world, and they choose to move their research to Singapore. And then how do I, as a unit in ASTAR in Singapore, make us competitive in the global scene? Yeah? So that is where I say we have demanding customers. They are more sophisticated. They are eager to get their research done, so time is the essence for them. And on the other side, I mentioned earlier, there are partners. These are our solution providers. These are our service providers, our vendors, you may call them. But they are the ones who serve this group of scientists and technicians. And in the next slide, you will probably understand why the partners want to find a winner to work with. because the landscape is quite scattered. And of course the staff, there's a team, I had a good team, they are still there in RSC. They also want to see success because it does mean that it builds up their capability, their learning, it even adds to their CV. Yeah? So on the illustration here, you see that the journey that was taken as a unit called RSC. Obviously, I came at the last period, 2016 I joined, and then 2017 I mentioned that we start this digital journey. And if you look way back when ASTAR started in 2004, the user base is very small, just the ASTAR labs. And then it moved into the middle time period where biopolice become more vibrant. There you see a lot of companies, MNCs, or even small companies coming into the scene, and then RSC began to serve them as well. But in this two period from 2004 to 2015, it was based on a parameter, a boundary that was given. What is that? That is the space that RSC had where they could put equipment in, they can store consumables, and that's where they serve their users from. And you can imagine with a limited real estate, let's call it, the amount that they can put there, the capability they can put there is limited, and that's the user base they can serve. But when I came in 2016, you'll notice that we say that our vision is to serve the ecosystem, which means any user, any researcher in Singapore. Let's start with Singapore. And we want to reach them, we want to give them the access so that they can do better science, so that they can make Singapore famous through their research. Now, if that's the case, the boundary suddenly has to change. And we should not be limited by any of our physical boundary. And that's why the digital journey has to start, which I will take you through in the subsequent slides here. Okay, so one example of what we did, if you look at the illustration, the bottom left corner are all the ASTAR labs, and that's our initial base. But for us, through this journey, we are able to connect a lot more of the service provider, of the users through this list of companies. And you see the green track, it is said service, Enquire Scope Service. Yeah? And that means that any researcher in Singapore can come to RSC, they ask for something to be done. For example, I have this sample, I want to do the screening, and I want to know the results, which then I can put into my publication. Simple example, but in the past, they would have to make phone calls and look for many, many people before they land a lab or a service provider. But through RSC, this is what we have given them. We open their door. You know, we have widened their options, and with this, they get their work done faster, right? Okay, this is one example. Our first validation. You see that device on the left of your picture. It is probably two Walkman. It's probably, if those of you who do not know what a Walkman is, it is example power bank. You stack 3 power bank. That's the size of that. So that biotech company came to us, and the CEO said, I have a problem. I have a membrane in this device. The fluid cannot pass in and out, and that affects the function of this device. So who did they call? They came to RSC, and through us, we searched within ASTAR, and we found a lab, Dr. Mani and Dr. Venkat. Then they solved the problem for him. And he was so happy that he could advance his research. And he came back a few more times to get help from us. Why is this an example? The reason is AWAC is a biotech. A biotech means they do not have a lot of money, they cannot buy a lot of equipment, they cannot hire many scientists. But they need the expertise, so what the RSC offer to them is like Grab. You know, they can book a time on the equipment, they can get consultation. And that is the difference it made to AWAC to advance their research. Now, you may ask, what is that thing on the left? That, I told you, is the size of 2 Walkman or 3 or 4 power bank you put together. That is a dialysis machine. If you have been to a dialysis center, today it is probably the size of a printer at the smaller scale and even bigger than that. AWAC is trying to change the world and make it into this size. And we are very proud that RSC is impacting their work so that they can impact the world. So that is what I mean by digital journey. That is what I mean by the impact we can bring to science. Yeah? Next C, compliance. So we, RSC is of course linked to public, and we are subjected to audit naturally. You know, taxpayers' money, we should be careful, right? Regulations, why? Because life science, biotech especially, is a highly regulated environment. We deal with sensitive equipment, substances that we have to be careful not to lose track of them. For example, COVID. 12 months ago, at this same time, I was involved in COVID projects, and we had to make the test kit, and by doing so, we had to handle various different substances, and that is where we need to keep track of what we have and what we use. I'll tell you a bit about that later. So that is the compliance element I mentioned. The ability to track and trace for 2 reasons. One is to uphold quality, and next is to be accountable for what we have and what we did. So if you look at the blue track down the middle, from the top you see consumables, reagents, plastics, everything that is used in a lab that can be used, that can get the results. And right there at the bottom you see data, publications, patents. Come back to the COVID example again. Yeah? So the lab came to me to say, I need this reagent. Can you get it for me? It's urgent, obviously, the war against COVID. So we got it for them. They put it into their experiments. And true enough, they got the results that they wish. And the scientists came back to me, say, hey, I like this. I want the same ingredient. I want the same part number. I want the same lot number. And the reason is they need to be so precise so that the test kit works. And that's what I mean by the quality track that you see on the slide here. You know, we must be able to drill down and trace back so that the results is repeatable, the results can be reproduced, and then we have certainty of our output. Now, then the other element would be the accountability. Like I mentioned, you know, imagine there are many labs doing the same experiment. So we have 5 blocks in Biopolis, each block about 20 labs at least. So you're talking about 100 overlaps. And if everyone is doing their things themselves, they're buying a lot of stuff, are they able to keep track of what they have, and how efficient are they? And that's where we implemented a pre-approved list, and we implemented this process so that we take away the 3 codes because it's done up front. And with that, we are able to push through thousands of transactions a year, and knowing that we have all the track record that can meet future audit purposes. So that is important, because when you're not compliant, you'll probably be shown a yellow card. Those who watch football, you know what yellow card means, and you definitely do not want a red card, which means they shut down the lab and all the work stops, yeah? So this is the last C that I mentioned at the beginning, to construct. So to do all that I have mentioned to you, we must be able to construct the solution, the process, so that it is scalable and we can pivot. Eh? And what is that? So today, in fact, 2017, this is what RSC offered. And I said we started the journey of digitization in 2017, and within the same year, we had this. So it's not a long process. You do not have to wait multiple years to achieve this. So if you just follow me, the flows, the 3 tracks from left to right, if you look at the orange, is search, click, buy. It's like the web store for consumables. The blue track is search, book, use. I mentioned earlier the grab for equipment. you need time, 2 hours on that piece of equipment, you go book for it. And the third is Enquire Scope Service. That's where customized service is. You have consultation with scientists, and they advise you how to run, and they do the job for you. So all this achievable because we have done the digital journey, right? So again, you have seen this slide earlier, and now again you look at the bottom left corner where that is our starting point. We put our labs on to the digital platform, and very quickly we were able to plug in the rest of the vendors that came along. Now, we didn't start to have this picture from day one. We started at the bottom left corner, and then we expanded, including some of the ASTAR labs, and also then along the way including partners, private companies. And how long did it take for us to onboard one? It's just a matter of weeks. If you have the foundation platform, it's easy to plug and play, set them up, and then they are in business. So what do I mean? This is a lab from SGH. So Dr. Joe Yong knows that he has a capability that is useful for other researchers. And he recognized that he shouldn't do everything himself. He should focus on the science, the quality of it, and get the best result for his users. And there in the blue words, he said, this is an online research marketplace, which means he knows he can find his customers through this RSC platform. And further down you see, he said that through this process of standardizing code, through standardizing the order process, it makes it so much easier for him. I must even say that we forced him to standardize a price list. And that's where the process and the thinking behind is important. With more standardization, it's easy for you to go digital. And then, of course, productivity is quite obvious outcome that you can see later as well. Now, this is then the RSC, the three models: search, click, buy, search, book, use, enquire, and scope service. And what I mentioned to you is there, the 4 blocks right at the bottom of this circle: enquire, quote, order, bill. With the implementation RSC, you literally can see that we have taken care of it from quote to cash. Yeah? The entire business flow is digital. So these are probably coming to my last few slides. Yeah? So construct means that, are you scalable? How far can you go? The blue bars are the transactions that we clock in RSC. In 2016, is probably touching 4,000, and then 2019 is closer to 10,000. So the scale of transaction jump many folds, but the people involved to do the work is a marginal increase. Now, that is why we were able to do what we have done through this digital solution. It's always a question of how many resources, how many people do I need to put in so that I can grow my business. And this is one way to look at it, that with a small increase, you can get so much because of the digital platform. Yeah. So did I do it all myself? Do I have a team, IT, army of coders, a lot of system designers? No, because I recognize that in RSC, our focus is on our users, our researchers, and we need to put our best people to front them. And what I then had to do is to look for a partner. And this picture you see here is a system diagram. It's what it is today, where the different components integrate, interact, and drive our processes. So all this is in the background, but it is definitely the workhorse for us, if you want to say. It is the faceless people that are working, and it's all up here. And we can go into a bit of this later, yeah, in the Q&A. And what is the impact? If you look at the right side of the screen, the impact, the number of offering, the processes, the operations, the compliance, and it's quite telling in the before and after, right? We can handle a lot more product items. Being a web store, users like to try out various things because it's all experimental. One product doesn't work, they can quickly switch to another one. Services, you look at the scientific services that we have put, and that is literally because we have gone away from our physical boundary. We said the equipment doesn't have to belong to RSC, just like Grab doesn't need to own the cars, right? So we went out and worked with the different labs, different vendors, and say, you can be part of this, and we hook them up, and there you are. Researchers can use any of those services. And same day code confirmation, we run the order platform 24/7. We have all the paperwork ready for audits. Paperwork, I meant digital copies, right? And my last slide would be this, what then is this all us thinking we are that good? Yeah, of course the customers gave us their feedback as well. The reason why the staff can be friendly and efficient is because they do not need to do a lot of the manual work, which is taken over by the automation, and therefore they can spend their time to engage the customers and users, right? Response time, again, if everything is online, you have it on your fingertip, we all need use our mobile, and that is what users can see. They can check status of the orders, right? And this is, again, users are eager to know when their reagents are coming because they are planning their experiments. There again, they know it's in good hands because the order is flowing through. Some of them even tell us that when they are taking the train on the way home, they put in an order because that's what people do. On the train, you can do stuff, and then they know the order is taken care of, and in the next 2 days, what they have ordered will come. And of course, then the last point is again there, small labs, they need the support from us, and that's what they get from RSC. So coming back to the last slide here, it's really about, I hope I've shown you why we went through the journey, and you should be asking yourself too, before you start, why do you want to do this? And then how it can be done. I mentioned you do not have to do everything yourself. There are partners out there. There are vendors. There are solution providers out there. Pick one that matches, the plans or the thinking you have for your company, and then work through it. So that is all I have for right now. We'll soon switch into a Q&A session that we can then have more time together interacting. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isaac, for a really interesting sharing from a practitioner. Isaac, I was surprised that you mentioned that ASTAR needs to compete. I always thought that organizations from ASTAR have no competitors. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we're going to have the Q&A session. And joining Isaac and myself, we have Mr. Suwandi. He is the project director at Zulu Information System. Suwandi's job is obviously to answer all the difficult questions you have regarding the digital solutions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to thank you so much for all the questions that came in. We have picked up quite a few of them, and we will later address them as we go along. But let me kick off with the very first question for our speaker, Mr. Isaac Chow. Isaac, I noted that you have a degree in computer science from NUS. Yes. Now, my first question to you is that, do you really need a degree in computer science in order to start your digital transformation journey?
FT, thank you for raising this. And I must qualify that that degree was long time back. 20 years, more than 20 years ago. So, but to your question, I would say no, simply. And I'll qualify that, yeah. What I did in Philips that I mentioned to you before was, part of it was 4 years in the Netherlands, where I worked in the HQ. I did a lot of data analytics for supply chain, for commercial operations. That time, yes, I had to do a lot of computer work, and this is where my degree came in. But now, what I shared earlier about RSC, absolutely not. It is about the transformation, is about what you see you need to do to change your business, to go for the market, and that doesn't need a computer science degree. It is about the goal of the organization and how the digital transformation helps you in doing that. So it starts with business, it starts with the goal of the organization. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have received quite a number of questions regarding digital transformation, the process, and then there's another group of questions regarding the technical part. So, as I mentioned, we will address the technical parts to Suwandi. All right. So, for each question, there are two elements to that. So, I'm going to kick off with the first question on the digital transformation. The question we have is that our company has been using our website to promote our products and services where customers can send in their inquiries to us. At the back end, we have order processing systems, inventory systems, billing systems, and so on. Now, the question is, what can digital transformation add to what we already have? Right? So first we're going to have Isaac to talk about the non-technical aspects, and then later we will pass the time over to Suwandi. Right? So Isaac, over to you.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. You remember that slide that I showed about the steps that you have in the journey, and what I did was I mentioned I started from the first two steps, and to this question is there are a lot more you can do. For example, analyzing your customer profile. What do they buy? Do you know them? What is their preference? The timing of their purchase. And then you can even go further to say predictive. Like a lot of us, when we search on a website, it becomes things like, other people have searched for this. Other labs are buying that. So then these are the further application of what you can do once you have started on the foundation. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you so much. So Isaac, you're saying that once the data is captured, there's a lot of things you can do in analyzing the customer behavior and also what kind of services that they are also using from some of your third-party partners, right? Okay, great. So over to you, Suwandi. Now that they have so many systems, now I realize that CRM was not mentioned, right? Would you say a few words about that, Suwandi?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's pretty natural that for organizations to have different systems, and that's due to different implementation at different time. I think the key question you will need to really look at is to say how can they actually integrate to each other, and not just integrate for the sake of integrating, but also from the view of how your business processes, the efficient business process that you want to achieve. So that is one key considerations. On the CRM aspect, absolutely, where every business exists is to really have more sales, more customer experience. So even as FT mentioned, you have this web store. You want to be able to also have ability for your customers to have good visibility of what your products and services. So is that very searchable? Is that if you can search, is that able to have a very seamless way of sending in the inquiries? A big example of what Isaac mentioned earlier on about sourcing for certain products for your customer needs. I think CRM will really play a great role in this aspect. So make the system a lot more able for the customer to outreach to you, and for your sales business team to be able to get alerted and attend to it very promptly. So that is definitely the key, FT.
Excellent point, Suwandi. So if you have all the back-end systems where your own people are all managing it very well, you may want to now put on a front-end system that enables your clients or customers to have a DIY and to personalize the system or service for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I'm going to move on to the next question regarding the maintenance, or the person called it upkeep. The question is, digital transformation looks promising. What does it take to upkeep such a system that has been implemented? So I'm going to first pass the time over to Isaac.
Okay, thank you for this question. So I read the question as maintenance, but not the technical aspect of maintaining the solution or the system I put in. You saw that I put it out a system architecture. So that maintenance, I depend a lot on my partner. Obviously, you know, in this case, it is Zulu and the team, right? So if I just leave that in their good hands, to me, maintenance is about the business processes, about the response to the market. So along the way, every few months, 3 months, half a year, 1 year, our team will review what is the market changes, how are the customers behaving differently, and that will tell us along the processes where must we tweak, you know, and then with that we will have to go back to our solution design and work with our partner to say, hey, we have to change the code for certain things, and that is how I see maintenance of the business continuity. And I will add also about the scalability and the way to be scalable and the way to have a simple maintenance is to take plug and play solutions. So I am not a fan of customizing. Some customizing is needed, but if it's too customized, then you will have difficulty being agile, being responsive, and your maintenance can be quite costly as well. So I've made it a rule at the beginning of the project to say, let's get off the shelf as much as we can, and let's get our people to come around to see how we can work with what we have off the shelf. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isaac. 2 excellent points from Isaac. Number 1, Isaac reminded us that the market is always evolving, and therefore your digital solution or your system has to basically evolve with that. And one key part is making sure that your business processes in-house is matching with what the customer needs, right? And then the second point is that you upfront dictated that you want to use off-the-shelf systems, and therefore that basically allows you to have much less worries about software, costly software maintenance. Excellent. Now, before I pass the time over to Suwandi, there's a related question on, so you talk about these 2 things. What would be the team size that you have and the resources in terms of manpower to maintain the system or to work with the partner?
Okay. All right, good question. I said earlier that I do not have an army of IT staff. So in this case, I had a project manager for my IT solution, supported by 1 other staff. So a team of 2 men dedicated to this project. And then we have business process owners. They are not full-time. They have their day jobs. For example, we have a logistics unit, we have an order processing unit, we even have a billing and finance. So each of these team will have a fraction contribution that forms the core team. So that's about it. And the rest of the, you might say the team that bring about this digital transformation, we tap on our partner. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So now I'm going to pass the question over to Suwandi, and let me remind him of the question. So what does it take to upkeep such a system? Over to you, Suwandi.
Yes, I think that's a really good point to consider. Once you are putting in a system running, I think the next thing is how to really upkeep it. I mean, you liken this to if you open a physical shop, right? In the beginning, when it's new, it's attractive, right? People will come in and visit you. But if you don't upkeep that, maybe suddenly the shines are lost, and then you don't get any traffic much. So just like what Isaac has mentioned from a customer's point of view about, you know, not having a bespoke or very customized system, I think from a solution provider is likewise, where we really think that whatever that we do implement for the clients is really not something that is so hard for even our own people to understand, not to mention to support. So we are pleased to be partnered with the ASTAR RSC. That solution that we put in is really highly configurable. We are able to respond to the customer's change requests pretty fast and easily without too much of technical configurations or programming and all that. So we're talking about even technically creating additional fields, additional screens, additional workflow, additional logic, validation logic. All those we can really do it in a way that is consistent throughout the standard system's behavior. And that is so maintainable from our own as a solution provider, and it can be very seamless to our customers as well. And this is what we really thought about upkeeping that system. And most importantly is also being on the cloud. It is also something that is very, very up to date all the time. So we don't develop the main software ourselves. We use Microsoft platform. So any updates from Microsoft, which is a big company, right, software company, those new functions, new features are seamlessly available to the client, to solution provider, the partner. So that's what we like about it.
Thank you so much, Suwandi. Looks like we have quite a number of very technical people in among the participants. So there are some technical questions. I'm glad you mentioned about the cloud. And we have a question from one of the participants. So the question is, which cloud platform is the best to consider for a digital platform and why? That's number one. And somebody else obviously asked, so how safe are this kind of cloud solutions, right? You recognize there's a lot of benefit because all the updates from Microsoft, they come in seamlessly, right? And so please help to address this, right? Number one, which cloud platform and why? And number two, how safe? Over to you, Suwandi.
Right. I'm also glad, FD, that you mentioned the question from participant in mentioning cloud. I think today's really is a buzzword, but at the same time, is it just a plain buzzword? I could really say that from established software players, whether it's a Microsoft or SAP, Oracle, they will put huge, indeed all the resources almost, to updating the cloud platform and the cloud software solution. So for companies who are maybe still dealing with the on-premises, there are some big consideration there because whether your software will really get updated as seamlessly, any newest, latest technologies are there or not. On the question of safe or not, that is really something a very old age question, right? So even over 20 years ago, when I was really very much involved in promoting human resource software services online, there were questions about how safe that is. I think we have really gone through this, where everything that we use today is all about being on the cloud, directly or indirectly. You liken this to, let's say, if you want to hurt me, you know where I stay, where I live, how my routine is. It's easily to find me, right? But that is likened to you put your system in your on-premises, where there is, and what kind of upkeep you have to protect that system in your premises. On the other hand, when it's on the cloud, you don't know where there is. Where is it, the data physically, right? And also, it is protected very many layers. Physical, not everybody can access. I cannot even access to where the system I host for my customers, right? But then, where is the protection? We talk about software, the firewall and all this stuff. All the latest security measures are all put in place automatically, seamlessly. So I think we have passed by that question about security. So, of course, the other part here, we have been using Microsoft. We find that it's not only that the main system like the ERP, the CRM, where key functions of your business operations are there. But at the same time, like I said, because on the cloud, it is a lot of what we call even a plugin, right? A lot of communities who can contribute lots of additional program function that are available. It's a marketplace in itself, in some way that can be subscribed to, or most of it even free, and to plug in, and to enable software provider like us to really respond very promptly to the changing on the business requirements of our clients. And that in itself, it's so convenient and so available. So I would consider those are main factors besides the functionality that are already there, but also ability to respond to your changing business needs. And your solution providers are able to respond in a very nimble way.
Wonderful.
Isaac, so FT, Suwandi, if I may add to this point about security. So to the audience, something for you to consider. We all have SingPass, right? You know what is SingPass, you use SingPass. SingPass is on the cloud. So the question for you is, do you trust SingPass and do you think it's secure enough? That's obviously something for you to decide. The other thing is also about maintenance we talked about earlier, right? So maintenance involves and includes security. So for example, in the solution that I shared with you, we do penetration tests, we do firewall checks, we have all the system infrastructure security that we do yearly, for example. So that is also part of the maintenance that should not be neglected, because by any scale there is constant hacking. It's all these protection layers that safeguards your organization, safeguards what you have. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the computer science part of Isaac talking. Okay, so Isaac, this question is for you. Yeah. Somehow I think we have a very worried person among the participants, and his question is, the presentation talks about all the good things of working with a partner. And the question is that, I guess he wanted to know, so what does your in-house IT group does, or rather, so can you say something about how do you work with your in-house IT department, or they don't exist at all? Over to you, Isaac.
Okay, thank you for this question. Just let's put it this way. The span and the scope of IT is very wide, in an enterprise, large organization like ASTAR. So obviously, there are different elements, you name it, the basic desktop, the office software and stuff we need for day-to-day job. That's what our IT does. But when it comes to certain specific areas of the business where it is a niche or a certain entity needs that but not the wider organization, that's where we have the flexibility in the organization to say, all right, that is something that let's look for expertise in the field to do it. Instead of trying to do everything but may not come out with a solution that meets the business needs. So it comes back to what is our organization goal and what's our business need. And I mentioned to you before, it is about enabling our researchers. It's about connecting service providers and let the whole ecosystem work. Now that is something that is very unique to RSC, and that is why we have decided to look for provider that can achieve this goal with us, with the blessings of the wider organization. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Isaac has brought up a very good point about IT resources. Yeah. Obviously, the needs of IT is very broad-based. And you mentioned that ASTAR obviously has a very strong IT team that looks at all the infrastructure and all that. But you are, for RSC, looking for something very specific, which is basically online web store, and then back-end order management, order fulfillment, and supply-based management, inventory, all that. You feel that that is very unique to RSC, and probably a partner does help. All right. So for that person who asked the question, so your job is secure. Don't worry if you are into IT infrastructure back-end support. Still on the technical question, and again we have a very knowledgeable participant, and he observed from Isaac's presentation is that, and this is how he puts it, right? So he says that Isaac has presented what he calls a IT closed system, and what he means is that in order to have an outside third party to participate in RSC, that third party has to conform to the RSC system. Yes. And his question is that, has RSC connected your system or your IT platform with an external third-party system? So why don't I let Isaac work on it, and then after that we move forward to Suwandi.
Okay. So that's really a good question, yeah? And it again comes back to that step ladder that I showed you in the presentation. And there you saw one step that's called collaborate. So this is what it means by collaborating. And the quick answer is we have not done any integration yet. And obviously, it is more complex than just saying, oh, let's connect and exchange data. We talk about security, we talk about proprietary of information. So that is where it needs more, and both companies will have to come together to work this through. And I recognize the power of it. In fact, I was just discussing with Suvandi over the break. There is opportunity to be more efficient. There's opportunity to serve our customers better as a vendor coming in and integrating, and information flows quicker. So that is something that we will consider. Of course, not in my current role, because RSC is now in the hands of another good team, and they will continue to run that race and keep improving on what is built today. Anything to add, Suvanti?
Yes, I think, thank you, Isaac. I think this is exactly the point that we have been always recommending, that for companies moving into a digitalization process, get a good hold of your requirements. And even though we have put in this implementation of the system in place, it is natural for the system to really run the course for a period of time. We are talking about many stakeholders that are also adapting to the new processes, your customers, your internal staff. And I think whether you want to do a big bang approach, that may be very, very too big thing for everybody to digest. So I think it is natural to let a process where your own staff are getting so familiar with the processes, the system, your customers, and then gradually you can take to the next stage. For example, if you think the seamless supply chain is better managed, having your vendors to come in and indicate certain key parameters of the transactions, and that can translate into routing for your administrator to validate and to do simple little clicks to translate into communication to your customers to manage your expectations. I think those processes are natural step to take. In the case, maybe you want to take one step at a time, but the plan is to really look from every stakeholder's point of view. What are the functions that make it better, make it more a better customer experience, better vendor experience, better solution experience? And I think that is really the key thing, to be able to have that clarity, the roadmap. And again, like what Isaac mentioned again about finding partners, right? At times in the small, let's say in SMEs, you may not all the time have this full focus. And at times you can really engage partners with the winning mentalities. You can't always identify the winners right away, but actually work with those winning mindset, winning spirit to define even the requirements, right? A simple thing like my customer can do this is, my administrator can do this is, my department head can do this, my top management can see this and that. So these simple requirements that I think you can find solution partners that can help you, right, to define all this. And when you come to implement, you're not sure if there's a winner or not, then do a small little transactions, first to establish that working chemistry, proven concept before you scale it up. That's what I think is a recommended way to get going.
Thank you so much, Isaac and Suwandi. Ladies and gentlemen, Isaac and Suwandi has reminded us the digital transformation is a journey, and RSC is on that journey. If you remember the slide, there are 6 steps to that. So they are probably going to move on to collaboration as the future, right? Now, still on that digital transformation journey, one very good question is that what kind of data analysis that you do now that you have the digital solutions in place for the past 5 years? Then secondly, how do you structure the data analysis, and what kind of insights have you gotten from that data analysis, right? And if I recall from your 6th step, this is probably going to be on the prescriptive or predictive parts of your journey, right? The higher end. So over to you, Isaac, and then later Suwandi, you may say a few words about on this. Thank you.
Yes. So about this, right now we have not. I noticed there's a question about do we hire data analysts. So not yet. We have not gone into it. But what we are getting our teams to do is to have our business team, our process team look at the data. And out of that, what did we get? What did we achieve? We have noticed a pattern of consumption. We have noticed that certain labs tend to buy things at the beginning of the month or at a later period. And what are the items they buy? So these are what I would say basic analysis that if we have the data, we can get into. Previously, there was an issue of not even, for example, not even having a unique part number. Then, how do you even zoom down to what the users really want and buys, right? So of course, then the analysis also comes back to us working with our vendors, right? We have products, suppliers, we have companies that want to give products. For example, we have a new item added to the catalog. With that, everyone is hopeful that it will sell like hotcakes, but does it really? Then the question, it comes back to the data. How is it, what is the take-up rate? Is it unique to a certain group of users? All these insights we start to gain, and I must say that the efficiency comes from gaining the insights very quickly, right? Instead of someone having to download a lot of data, crunching it, and then take weeks to come up with that visibility. But with organized info system, we are able to see it very quickly, and I think that itself is already a plus. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think this is a question about visibility, isn't it? I mean, visibility, first thing, if you are business, visibility of your products and services to your customers. And also visibility internally for your own people about understanding your customers' behaviors, buying patterns. The good news is that a lot of all these analytics are now so-called ready-made package available just on the dashboard of the system, right? We, for example, put in Elasticsearch technology, so your customers can easily search your product by a various way, just by the name, by the SKU, or even by certain brand and all that. So you want to ensure your product services are really very highly visible and searchable. And they need some work at the back end when you really have to tag them properly, all that. But the benefit is really make it highly visible. And then on your own internal, you could look at, of course, sales progression, new customers that join your platform. But also the key thing is that, what kind of search words probably that your customers are often using, right? So that gives you indication, right? In intelligent nowadays, knowing what search words that they are actually using. And so this will give you some insights on that. So I would say that for today's technology is again, analytics are very available. And this can be even further tuned to specific views that you may want to have. Yeah.
Wonderful. So looks like one of the key things that RSU probably should consider is bringing in a real data analyst, right? To look at the 5 years of data, what can we extract, what new knowledge, and so on. Okay, excellent. Now I'm going to do one more technical question before we move back to the business side. And this one, I'm not sure if we are able to address it today at this session, right? And it's a very technical question. It's related to security, and I'm going to open up to the two of you to see who wants to handle it. And the question is, for security, can the data management solution be a hybrid? And what this means is where, for example, the database could be on a physical server within RSC, for example, for security purposes, while the other data sources on a private cloud. Is this configuration feasible or inefficient? So let me repeat that. At least to me, it's quite a tough question, right? But let's try, right? So, For security, can the data management solution be a hybrid, which means the database could be on a physical server, and then the other data sources on a private cloud. All right, and is this configuration feasible or is it inefficient? Good luck.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I think we do have lots of hybrid cars on the road now, isn't it? So it's kind of transitional. I think definitely a consideration if you have not got to the stage where everything is on the cloud, right? But as I mentioned earlier on, the lots of latest functionalities, securities, and all this stuff are all on the cloud platform. But at the same time, let's take it back to where your main objectives are of having this data analysis. So for analytics to really make sense, it has to take the right set of data. So where the data are right now is probably not so relevant in a sense, because you may have a situation where certain data in your physical server need to be shared in a raw way to a certain platform, certain central database that can further be analyzed, taken, and put into some meaningful analytics for you. So when you're saying the data is really not the information, right, in your personal cloud itself, the personal server itself, that has to be straight away taken out from it as it is. It could be just a raw form of the data itself, right? And so again, this is like what FT mentioned. It is a big topic, and this is something that obviously engage your solution providers. And in our experience, in our line, we definitely do meet with the customers, from the stakeholders to the technical resources of your company, to really map out what the level of comfort of this raw data that I defined to be shared into this central database for further analytics. So that's a big topic. I agree, FT, and I think that's something that we have to really align that with you, the level of comfort. But certain fundamentals have to happen, and that is really certain raw data have to be the ingredients in order to make a nice outcome, right?
Yeah. So if I were to add to this, I am obviously not a technical expert, and I see it from a management point of view, how I safeguard the infrastructure, the IT solution, so that it doesn't open itself to any infiltration, cyber attacks. So what I do then, I depend on my corporate IT to tell me what the policy is, what are the safeguards. I also look to my vendors and to say, okay, what is the best practice? So I can imagine perhaps the question is coming from the angle of, should we put all the eggs in one basket? Should we have one place that, then if there's one attack, then everything is gone? So I don't have the answer to this, yeah? It's more about what the experts tells me, if there's a really safe place that we can put everything there, I'm fine. For example, I mentioned about GovTech or SingPass. If that is where all the data is in one place, possibly. So that is something, it's not the business entity like myself had to decide. It's more about who are the experts that can advise you that the best arrangement from the angle of cyber attacks or cyber security. Yeah. So don't do it alone. Find the expert to advise you. Yeah.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already guessed, my friend Suwandi, he also has a computer science degree. Otherwise, I don't think he can survive that question. Now, I really want to move away from the technical question, but I also don't want to disappoint one of the participants. His name is Nick. And so let this be the last question, or last technical question. And his question is that, is there a unified analytics solution able to integrate different data sources? And to add to that, is it able to provide prescriptive and predictive analytics? You want me to repeat that?
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let me repeat that.
That's fine.
Nick, I hope we got your question right. And if I do get to meet you, I think you need to buy me kopi to include your question. So your question is there a unified analytics solution able to integrate different data sources? And is it able to provide prescriptive and predictive analytics? Over to you two gentlemen, whoever wants to volunteer.
Right.
So if I may start, because the one that start usually have to say less. Yeah? So the quick answer is no. In fact, the why I say is no is I'm in the middle of doing another project about equipment infrastructure across ASTAR. And you can think of it as how many equipments we have, the diverse set of equipment. If we just simply say we want to know the utilization of every piece of equipment here, the answer is there's no quick answer, there's no quick solution. You probably may need to have different pieces of software to bring it together, and at some point, yes, maybe perhaps the final look and feel of it. That is how I see today's landscape is. I will certainly ask friends and partners that I've worked with before, how can we bring this about? So Randy, if you can just add to this.
Yeah, I think we have also heard in the industry like data warehousing, right? And now they call it data lake, and Microsoft call it dataverse. From the technical solutions that we have been involved in, we can definitely accommodate various sources of data into this centralized database. So I think in terms of the data, it can be pulled to a place whether you have this unified interface to do your analytics. You have to find the right tool to work with this central source of data lake. Yeah, and I think there are plenty of tools that are available there to be able to work on a central lake system like Dataverse from Microsoft. And I think again, prior to doing that is clarity of what you want to achieve in terms of the analytics, and then what sort of raw data needed to come on board to this data lake. So I think that is a process, like I said, engage work with the partner, work with the solution provider, the expert, winning mentality to achieve, to align this clarity of these objectives. So I think I would say from solution-wise, there are definitely out there, and this is something that you could begin to explore with the expert.
All right. Thank you so much, the two gentlemen. I have no idea what Swandi was talking about, but I hope, Nick, you figure that out yourself. And like we always say, if we are not able to address everything, please feel free to connect with us after the session today. And I believe we will provide you with the contact details before we end the session today. So I'm going to move on to the last part of our Q&A session. And this is going to be addressing questions from, I think we have quite a big group of participants who actually have not started on the digital transformation journey, right, based on the questions they pose. So the first question is that, what are the key steps to get from zero digital transformation to hero digital transformation? I like that.
I like that.
So what are the key steps to get from zero digital transformation to hero digital transformation? That's number one. And then I will give you the whole thing because they're all related, the three questions. Then number two, this came from a gentleman by the name of Michael. And he said that, so in terms of conceptualizing the whole thing, between RSC and the partner, who did what? Or who did most of the work? Who conceptualized it? Or, is it the partner, Zulu, came to you with the model and then you basically, took it, all right? So I'm going to leave it to you guys to sort that out. And then finally, right? Obviously, this particular person recognizes that, Isaac, you work in a big organization. Yeah. So besides you, you have powers above you. So the question is that how do you sell it to the management or the board, and was there any pushback? So very quickly, I'm going to run through the 3 questions, all related to how to get the whole journey going. Number 1, what are the key steps to go from zero digital transformation to hero? Number 2, in terms of conceptualizing the whole thing, who did the work? Is it RSC or the partner? And then finally, how do you sell it to the board or to the powers above you? Were there any pushbacks? All right, over to you, Isaac.
Okay, thank you, FT. So indeed, you know, it is a question about why do we do this. Yeah. So if you look back at what I've shared with you on the journey, there is a reason why we did this, because we wanted to serve the whole ecosystem. Yeah. We recognize that with our physical boundary, we would be stuck with just the limitation of the space. We can only hold that number of products and SKU. We could not put more equipment in so that we serve a wider spectrum of scientific services. So you name it, flow cytometry, next-gen sequencing, microscopy, lots and lots of equipment that cannot simply fit into one place. Yeah. So and then, you know, that's one side. If we have an ambition, we think we can serve a wider ecosystem, we want to go for it, we could not do it. And that's one part of selling to the management as well. So imagine we say we can connect all the users all the researchers in Singapore to this, through this platform, and enable more people to do their research. That's selling the idea and the vision. Now there's also on the other side the pain points. So what are the pain points of day-to-day operations? You know, if we are going to serve more users, more customers, are we going to hire a lot more people? Naturally, the answer is no. You know, who is going to give you to say, hey, double your headcount from 20 become 40, 40 become 80? That's not sustainable, and that way is not even scalable. So that's why if you have your day-to-day pain points, your operational challenges, and put together with your ambition, that's how I managed to position it to the bosses. Yeah, that we can do a lot more, a lot smarter, with same or less equivalent magnitude of resources. So that's how we got it. And then the question about zero to hero is simply taking the first step. You know, you automate, you go digital. In fact, it's also a function of how ready is your team to go the journey, right? They might be afraid of computers. They might be, I've not done this before, creatures of old habits, resistant to change. So that itself is a lot of work in the project team to convert the staff. And then with that, you take steps and move along. And as long as people see the benefits to themselves, imagine they go home on time, but a lot more gets done. So why not? Imagine they start to feel that customers are happier with what is delivered, the service or the products, then it lifts the motivation. So I would say the zero to hero does include the capability shift of the team, does include the motivation that you bring about as a result of this change that they recognize and therefore want to be part of this winning team. So it doesn't have to be big jumps. Remember, I used a Japanese proverb, it's the nail. If you can control your transaction, if you can run your transaction smoother, you are on a winning path. Yeah. Okay.
And I think on this point, if I may add in as well, if you are not moving, what is your speed? Zero, right? So the key is really moving. So you are not zero. The point also, again, so align that with the stakeholders. What are the pain points right now? What are the objectives? Have that clarity and then move rather than just stay still, because there will be always zero. in terms of the question about how between you, the customer and the solution partners, who drives what and all that, this is a really very collaborative. The good news is that the tools, the technology, the software these days contain a lot of best practices that solution providers are happy to share with the customers. Noting down the due respect to the customer who was so focused on their businesses. They know their processes, their transactions better, but it's just a matter of coming together, right, to share. And I mean, we are happy to work with customers that are also open to modifying, tweaking the business processes to leverage on what best practices, processes that are already in the standard software, rather than insisting on the processes that you already have pre-digitalization, forcing into the software. Then you're having to make the solution provider to crack certain processes in the software to squeeze something in that may have a lot of impacts on that aspect as well. So I think it's about the both way on that. But I would like to wrap to say that keep moving. If you're not moving, the speed is zero. That's what it is.
Yeah. So if I will just add on to what the last point that Shawandi just mentioned about how is it conceptualized. Yeah. So for me, I see it as it always comes from us, the client, if I may use the word, that we have to decide what we want. We have to be clear what is our business goal and what do we want to see as the deliverable. How it is done on a system level, how it is done on a solution level, I do not have the answers, right? I am not an expert in that. I do not want to limit my partner in the proposal. And that's exactly what we did. Yeah? So with Zulu, we said, okay, I want to achieve this. I have the user base. My ambition is to serve the whole of Singapore. How can we do it? And also we want to plug and play, right? I said I want to be able to onboard my platforms quickly. The faster they get on board, the quicker the users are served, the quicker the revenue comes in, and so on. So that is how we conceptualize our business model. And then with our vendor, the discussion about what then is the technical solution and infrastructure behind that. So that, in fact, is really very important, that you must find a partner that you can talk with, that you enjoy meeting up, So I must say that even for part of the solution that you have heard of, happened during the COVID days, where we were in a lockdown and we were not able to meet each other. And in fact, Suvandi just reminded me, he literally implemented the whole solution with my project team online, no physical meeting. So it's about, do you have that trust? Do you have that, that alignment in thoughts that you are ready and willing to go through the journey? So that, I think, is also very important. Yeah. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be good to start, but to be good, you got to start. I think that's the message I got from these two gentlemen. And I really like what the kind of clarity that Isaac said in terms of the three questions, right? What, why, and how. And he says that as far as conceptualization is concerned, the client, right, which is RSC, has to know the what, right, and the why. And then as far as the how, you want to leave it to the experts, right? Exactly. The partner. Right. Okay, so I hope on the conceptualization part, what is the difference or what kind of work is needed from the RSC and the partner. The RSC got to figure out what's the why and the what, and then finally the how. You basically want to tap on the expertise from the partner, right? And I really like what Isaac said about how he deal with the senior management in ASTAR, right? He said, tell them the vision, right? Tell them the why. And then after that, if they still are not convinced, then tell them the pain points. What you can do more and smarter with the same number of people, but with the help of technology, right? And just to give you a little bit of side information, because Isaac mastered the trick of how to sell it to the management. So he used to be a director of RSC. Now he's the COO of ASTAR's Experimental Drug Developmental Center. Now we probably going to have the last part. I'm going to very quickly direct this question to Suwandi. You mentioned quite a bit about the off-the-shelf solutions, which Isaac said that's basically one of the fundamentals in structuring this whole project. Could you share with us some of the digital solutions? I think one of Isaac's slides had that. Right. So
yeah.
Other than Microsoft 365, what are some of the other off-the-shelf solutions that will part of the entire RSC digital solution? You want to say a few words on that?
Oh, yes. Indeed, the off-the-shelves are getting better. So, for example, even in your web store, you have like Knob Commerce system that's really very established, rich functionalities, highly configurable, and you want to pair it with a certain content management system, example like Sitefinity, and also very rich functionality, very scalable. Okay, and then you would make sure that it is actually very visible, like I say, your products and services. So you have Elasticsearch technology, and you also want to have a visibility for internal, like Matomo, for the analytics of your customers' purchasing behavior, etc. And then at the back end, you could use, like we put in the Microsoft CRM for the sales management, relationship management, and then also the order fulfillment process. And subsequently, make sure all these transactions are translated into billing, right? And so it's actually integrated to ASTAR-wide SAP billing finances system. And not to forget having to always have a good information communication with your customers. So do have a function for your customers on your portal, on your web store. They can track the visibility of the order, the progress, and even subsequently, if you want to expand it to even look at the, whether they have paid the invoice and all that. So those are some examples, some names that I can mention specifically for that.
Wonderful. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to have more information on what we call this off-the-shelf solutions, I'm sure you can drop a note into the chat box, and Zulu will be more than happy to send those what we call off-the-shelf packages and what each one of them can do. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's session, and we are very grateful to Isaac for taking his time off to spend with us. I have met, I have read in the Straits Times and it's all over TV who are what we call the COVID frontline heroes. Now, listening to Isaac, I finally get to meet a COVID back-end hero. He was the one, working throughout. I saw some old photographs of Isaac. I think he had more hair, but after 2020, looks like that has kind of diminished, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to thank Isaac and also Suwandi for helping out on those very difficult technical questions. And as we promised, if you feel that the answers are not satisfactory enough, feel free to connect with us. We'll be happy to sit down and let's have a meeting in the cloud, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Clouds,
yes.
right? So right now, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to thank all of you for taking time off on a Friday morning to join us on this session, the Digital Transformation Talk Series. I hope each one of you have benefited. If any one of you have a question that was not addressed today, feel free to address it to us. We'll be definitely more than happy to sit down with you and cover that. And to end off, the whole session is recorded, and we will be happy to send you the link, and you should be able to relive those moments. I personally found it very exciting to have a glimpse of what happened, you know, in this huge organization called ASTAR. I'm very proud that Isaac has a vision to make Singapore the world-class ecosystem, of course, with the help of Zulu Information System. Thank you and goodbye.